Hey there, everyone. Thanks again for tuning in to Cin's Workshop here on YouTube. We're having a great day. So today we're going to be talking about the shadow in the glass. This has been labeled as a very dark Cinderella retelling. And I have to say, when I started reading it, I completely forgot that it was a Cinderella retelling. It wasn't until I was like sitting at my computer, writing my review, getting all the product info, that I'm like, oh yeah, it was a Cinderella retelling. And I think that works in favor of the story because a lot of retellings have this tendency, they can be well written, but they have this tendency to be somewhat predictable because if it's a retelling, they have to kind of hit, or I feel like the authors themselves feel like they need to hit all those pivotal moments that happened in the original fairy tale. And what happens in this story is, yes, those moments are there, but they're not really obvious to the eye. And I think that works really well with the story because it also is very Faustian. I don't know if you know the story of Faust. He makes a deal with the devil per se, to, he basically becomes, this dude's servant. He's like, okay, but at the end of it, your soul is mine. It's one of those be careful what you wish for stories. So I do think that allowed this story itself to be really unique and very dark. And that's, again, what I liked about it. Did the story have some issues? Yes, and we'll talk about them later on. But I have to say, as far as the story itself, it really was, it really was very well done. So it follows Ella. She is, as you would imagine, a maid. Her stepfather, not her stepfather, but her caretakers pretty much, once the mother figure passed away, there's one of your tells, he turns her into a maid. He's like, okay, you gotta start earning your keep around here, right? And he's a disgusting man. So he spends his money on whatever, and he takes advantage of the young girls in his household. Once they've reached a certain age, he pretty much rapes them. It's not explicitly said, but through Ella's perspective, she's noticing the bruises on some of their arms, the fact that many of them are forced out because they've been knocked up by him. So it's really tragic to see that happen, and it really does put a darkness over the fairy tale. You're already kind of seeing, okay, this is going to be a dark fantasy retelling of this story. So it takes place also in Victorian England. So the setting itself is also very dark, very somber. The women in this time period, you're either, you don't really have a lot of prospects during this time period. There are just so many. I could list them all, but your maid, your goal pretty much for any woman, no matter your status, your goal is to find a husband who can take care of you, basically. It doesn't matter your profession. And if you can't, you end up being, a spinster or a prostitute, pretty much working the streets to get by. And Ella sees the unfairness of this world, of this society, because it was ripped away from her. She was promised, a really bright future when she was a child, and then it was just sort of pulled out from under her. And it does really make her kind of a tragic heroine, because she just, you really do want to root for her. You really do want to root for her. I'll say that. I did root for her as a character. I did sympathize for her because she's not a bad person. She's not a bad person. And then she meets her fairy godmother, who has pitch black eyes. And she's like, okay, I'll give you 7 wishes. All I ask for return is your soul. And Ella, she's like, I shouldn't do this. Shouldn't do this. No, it never ends well. I shouldn't do this. And she does it. And she's like, no, I can use my wishes to make the lives of people around me better. And she does, but she doesn't really word things the correct way, which is unfortunate. You feel bad for her. It kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you saw those movies, Wishmaster. Yeah, it kind of gave me those kind of vibes. You just feel bad for her because she just can't catch a break. Something good happens here, but it costs something. And it really just costs something. The fairy tells her, it's like, magic just doesn't come without nothing. And it made me think of Rumpelstiltskin. You know, from Once Upon a Time, magic comes with a price, dearie. You know, and it does. And the price for her magic is a life. She's gonna take a life. And Ella's like, no, I don't want to be the cause of someone's pain. She's like, no. No, 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 no. So she tries, as she might, to do good. But again, it's not like she made a wish with a fairy godmother. She made a wish with something otherworldly. And the cost of it was her soul. And the cost of something is your soul, you know. It's highly unlikely that it's going to work out in your favor. You know what I mean? So you really do empathize for her. You really do feel for her because her wishes, she just wants to help the people she loves. She wants to, yeah, some of them are greedy. You know, she does want to give herself that future that she was promised, but she wants to give herself that future so that she can take care of all the girls that have been turned out on the street. She wants to be their patron, to take care of them, so that they don't have to live in fear of this lecherous old man. So she wants to do good. You see it. You see that she wants to do good. But what I think is also really interesting with the story and her character development as well is, remember, at the end of it, after all 7 wishes, her soul is gone. And the fairy does tell her, you've already made 2 wishes. I can't give you back 5/7 of your soul. So every wish takes a bit of her soul. And you really do get to see that really slowly throughout her narrative. She becomes colder. She becomes a little bit more malicious. She becomes more strategic and manipulative to try to get what she wants. So you're seeing it. You're seeing her movement. You're seeing her change and development. And I really do think that goes really hand in hand with the character development. I really do think it does lend itself to being a really good story for that aspect alone, because you really are seeing this subtle change. And it really does take you by surprise, because by the end of it, she really is so different than how she starts out. But it's also a good reflection of the society. You know, historically speaking, women back then, they couldn't just live in their daydreams, you know? They had to be firm, they had to be tough, they had to be cold in order to protect themselves from this very, very unfair society that they were living in. So you're really seeing this change overcome Ella, but you're seeing how it also reflects the time period that we're in. Now, what didn't work so well were, everyone talks about Ella as a child after her mom died, how she was a wild thing, and Ella doesn't really remember that. she asks these questions and the author fails to answer them. So they are a distraction, because at the end of the day, I'm just like, okay, so what were these references supposed to do? What were they supposed to allude to? Were they supposed to allude to anything? They really did just serve as a distraction for the overall storytelling. They just didn't work ultimately. I think the story was good enough on its own that you didn't really need this sort of like, oh, she was a wild, demented child. Like, was she possessed? Is she demonic? Where are you going with this? So it was a little confusing why the author decided to insert these little snippets for the last half of the book to really say, oh yeah, you were a crazy, wild demon child. But what does that mean? How is it important? Is it important? Because to me, when I was reading it, I didn't feel like it was important. It felt like superfluous information, unfortunately. But you know what? It was still ultimately a good book. I really did like it. I loved the ending as well, because it's just like, you don't know what's going to happen. You really don't. And it was really good. How it left off, I enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed the character development as well. I like how you're seeing the subtle changes in her personality to make her a crueler and colder person. Now, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and give this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. Again, there were those elements that were just very distracting. It really did dampen the story because they didn't do anything for the storytelling. For that last half of the book, it was there, and it was really distracting to me. So I did have to take away from that. So 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was a good read. I do recommend it. If you want to go ahead and purchase the book, please remember to purchase the book from your local bookseller or online preferred retailer. I will include a link to bookshop.org. Bookshop.org does donate a percentage of all your sales to a local bookstore in your neighborhood. You can also select your own little bookstore that you frequent to donate the proceeds to. You can also check out the book from your local library if money's tight. I know a lot of us are still struggling from COVID-19 financially. I am one of them, and yet I just shop like I have money. I don't. So I understand. Just check out the book from the local library. If your library is still closed because of COVID-19, you can always get a digital library card and check out the book as an ebook or an audiobook. And if you have a physical card, you can do curbside pickup for your library. A lot of libraries are doing that. And on that note, I hope you all continue to support me by liking this video and subscribing to my channel. You can also become a supporter on Buy Me a Coffee or by purchasing one of my handmade candles. There are links to all of that in the description below. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and as always, happy reading.